The chief coroner in Saskatchewan has announced an inquest into the stabbing deaths of 11 people earlier this month. The incidents occurred on the James Smith Cree Nation and in the nearby community of Weldon. The death of one suspect is among the 11 being examined. The second suspect died in custody shortly after RCMP arrested him. Here's Coroner Clive Wayhill.
The events that occurred require a methodical and complete investigation. With the suspect deceased, there will not be a public criminal trial. Without a public hearing of the facts, it will leave many questions unanswered from the families involved and the public pertaining to the circumstances leading to the deaths.
The CBC's Sam Sampson is tracking the story from Regina and has more.
The chief coroner said that they will be holding an inquest into the 11 deaths that happened that day on September 4th. And if you've been following this story, you know that we've been reporting 10 people were victims and there were 2 people accused. So having 11 people involved in this inquest, we asked, means that Myles Sanderson, one of the accused, his death will be included in this inquest. So this, the coroner says, will happen sometime next summer. He said, some people might ask, why not hold a public inquiry and not just an inquest? He says it serves the same purpose. If you've been paying attention as well to the public inquiry happening in Nova Scotia about the mass shooting there a few years ago, he says that a lot of the same details will come out in that way. So it'll be public. People from the media can come. The families will be kept abreast of all of the details during the inquest. So it'll be a very public way to get answers for the family and the public, on what happened in James Smith Cree Nation on September 4th. The other public aspect of this is that there will be 6 people on a jury for this inquest in Saskatchewan. And the coroner says that, the chief coroner says that his intention is to have every person on that jury who is Indigenous. So First Nations, Métis, Inuit, every person on that jury will be Indigenous. And the reason why, he says, is because this tragedy mainly affected people who were First Nations in the James Smith Cree Nation. So it's important to have that context and that perspective during the entire inquest. The other thing to mention here is that this is just one inquest that will happen. It's interesting because the chief coroner is choosing to do this inquest into the 11 victims. There's a mandatory one coming up that the chief coroner will be involved in, which is of the death of Myles Sanderson. So he's the other accused in this. He's the one who was the subject of the manhunt for almost 4 days here in Saskatchewan at the beginning of this month. Because he died in police custody shortly after his arrest in Saskatchewan, that is a mandatory inquest into his death. And the chief coroner kind of dropped a bomb on us here, because the focus of this, according to his statement, was about the victims' inquest. But near the end of the conversation, he said, I'll leave you with this. Some preliminary information about Myles Sanderson's death is that there was no blunt force trauma in his death. And we asked, why would you bring that up right now? It's preliminary. What are you trying to say? He said he would not insinuate any reasoning or what happened. But that's a little nugget of information he's leaving the public with, is that Myles Sanderson, he says, preliminary information, did not have any blunt force trauma on his body after he died. And so there's a lot of questions now about why that information is out there. What does that mean? But we won't get a lot of those answers for at least a year, according to the chief coroner, because A, the victims' inquest is coming up next summer, and then there's going to be a lot of time still because the Saskatoon Police Service has to investigate the RCMP due to the in-custody death. So a lot of answers and a lot of time to think, or rather a lot of questions and a lot of time to ponder those while we wait for the inquest next year.